This is part 2 now of Blender Challenge 13 Isometric Room. And I have finally found an image that I want to use as a reference image, something that I want to model. So this is the image that I'm going to be using. And I should say that I found this image on the internet and I contacted the artist that created it and wrote them and asked them if I could have their permission to use it as a reference in modeling. And they wrote me back and they said, yeah, sure. So that was very cool. So instead of just taking somebody's image and doing that, I went through the process of writing them and waiting to hear back. And I think that's always a nice thing to do, especially if you're going to be using their work in public and giving them some credit. And so this is what I've chosen to model. And I've tried to choose something that is a vector image, and as this is, so that I could model it in 3D. I believe this was brought into a 3D program, but somewhat vector anyhow. All right, so we're going to just make a start doing this, and my goal here is to try and do something relatively straightforward and relatively simple. So if you're a relative beginner, you could follow along, and I'll try to explain what I'm doing as well. So we're going to deal with setting up the isometric view down the road, and as you can see, it looks something like a cube with the sides and the top cut away, and that's what we're going to start with in Blender. So I'll be flipping back to this image periodically to do that. So over in Blender, I've got the cube here, and I'm going to move this up. I'm going to hold down Control and just pull it up. Now it's resting on the floor, so I just press Control and pulled it up. So there it is. So I'm going to press Tab and go into Edit mode, and you can see that it's all selected, and the vertices here are highlighted. I'm going to press 3 to go into face selection, or I can do that over here. I can click on this one here. We were over here in vertex selection. I'm going to click that. I'm going to select this face. I'm going to hold down Shift and select that one. Hold down Shift and hold down and select that one. So I've just got those two unselected. I'm going to press X for delete and faces. And we'll have this, and that's not quite the shape that I want yet. So I'm going to move these parts, these edges down a bit. So I'm going to click there, select this one and this one, and I'm just going to pull them down a little bit. And see, as I sort of scroll my mouse wheel and hold down Shift and my middle mouse button to pan around, see if that looks a little bit like this shape here. And I guess it does, and maybe even a little bit more. And we have the basis of our room. So now you can see that the walls have some thickness and the floor has some thickness, and it looks like it's relatively equal. So what I'll do is I'm going to go Alt-A to deselect, press the Tab button to go back into object mode, and press the wrench, add modifier, solidify. I'm going to start dragging this, and I think I'm going to drag it outwards like this to start giving it some thickness, and I'll click on even thickness. Hold down Shift and I can move in smaller increments and just start to get what I think I want for the thickness of this. Looking at this. So just do whatever looks good. I think that looks relatively good like that. So I think I will go ahead and click Apply. Now if I go into Edit mode, select it, you can see it's got that thickness. Alright, so there's our room starting. And I think that what we will do is we will work on these pieces here that project. So to do that, I'm going to assume this part here, I'm going to have to make a projection that comes out, or an extension, and over here. So let's see, we could probably just do this by eye by going Control R to add a loop cut, click, and drag. And if I look from, say, the front view, I press 1 to look in front view, you can see that it's kind of angled. So I can get this to line up. Let's look from the top view. You can see that. I want it all in the x-axis. So I'm going to go SX0. We'll straighten that out. So let's say I'm going to get a thickness of about this much. I'm going to pull some out. And just before I do that, let's just go Control R here and drag one down as well. If I look from the top, this one may not be straight either. As you can see, it's angled. And I want to straighten them in the Y, SY0. So we have that so far. And what we want to do is we want to create about this thickness here. Now they look different on the different sides. This one in this dark area here looks a little bit taller than this area. So let's see what we can do. I'm going to go Control R, click, and I'm going to pull up an edge loop to maybe about there, maybe down a little bit. And this is not straight either in the Z, so SZ0. And that gives me an area. If I press 3 for face selection, if I select that, that would give me an area that I could pull out. And this would give me an area I could pull out. And I just want to decide if that is long enough. And in reality, it looks like this is longer here than this piece as well. So I think I want to move this edge. So I'm going to press 2 for edge selection. I'll go to there and I go and hold down Shift and Alt. Click and I'll get the whole edge all the way around. And I'm going to move it in the X direction a little bit like this. Alright, so it's just a little bit longer. So this area here versus the rest of that, let's just see this area versus the rest of the wall. Okay, that's probably going to be fine. So let's look at taking this piece and extruding it out. All right, I want to come out a little ways here. And I think I will just do this by eye again. So I'm going to press E to extrude and left click to accept and now pull. Like this. All right. So I've got the basis of this, but of course there's an angle there. We'll deal with that in a moment. Okay. And I just want to think about this area before I go on. You know, I think I'm going to do them the same. Or maybe I'm not going to do them the same. So I went into 2 edge selection and I selected just that edge. Just by clicking it. I'm not holding down Shift and Alt. I don't want to select the whole thing, I just wanted to select that. And I was thinking I would just pull it up a little bit. And it doesn't look too nice when I do that. And so, let's think about that for a moment. One thing I will need to be doing is adding another edge here. Shift or Control R, click, left click. I can still move that. I just want to come down and look. See, I'm going to be making this cut here. And I think I'm going to move this up a little bit. Let's just go ahead and do this part. Select that edge, pull it back. Look at this effect. I think I'm going to need to move all of this out a little bit. So I'm going to select both of these, holding Shift in face selection, and pull them out a little bit. And I will have that. And now I just need to decide if that's the right shape that I want, and I think that it is. And so I think I will come over here and I will simply select both of these and extrude them out. So I just press E and I'm just pulling, gesturing in the direction that I want. Let's try that. And that's in edge selection. Select that and pull it back. And I get this one and I get this one. I can now go around and holding down Shift and Alt and clicking these little pieces. Sometimes I have to select multiple pieces until I get the edge all the way around. To decide, I think I'll select that one as well, and this one and this one. I'm just trying to decide if I want to make it a little bit shallower, like that. Okay, back into object mode. I'm going to select it all now, and I'm going to come over to modifier, add bevel. I'm going to choose 3 segments, 0.0, try 2, see how that looks, and maybe even 1. Not 2, 1, just 1. And we'll just probably leave it like that. I won't worry about shading it smooth or anything at this point. So we have the very basics of our room. Let's save. And we will do these lines at another time. Let's just block in some of the other pieces that we're going to need. Of course, we'll need this, but first of all, let's just look at the floor and notice there's a region here before this line. And we also have a region here before this line, but this part is angled. So let's have a look at that. I'll turn off the bevel for the moment. I only have on the floor, or where the wall and the floor meet, this edge. So I'm going to need another edge here. I'm going to pull one down here, first of all. And I'm going to scale this in the Z to straighten it, SZ0. I think I'll leave it there. And I'm going to select this edge and this one. So I'm in number 2 edge selection. And I'm going to pull it out like this. Turn on the bevel again. I've got a little piece there that I wanted. Okay, cool. So it looks like if you were to take this edge and it went straight down before we did that, the distance to this line, it looks like it's probably the same as the distance from here to this line. And then there's a little bit from the line to this dark area, from the line to the dark area in the middle, and then this, you know, like computer console type thing. Pretty much in the dark area. So, you know, it's basically in the middle, and it's pretty much a cube that's flattened. So let's just, you know, block in some of these things. You'll note that my 3D cursor is still right in the middle. So I'm going to Shift A, mesh. I'm going to use a plane, bring in a plane, move it up in the Z direction, go into edit mode, press 2 for edge selection if I wasn't already there. Select that edge, and I'm going to pull it back like this. And think about how long here or how wide I would want this piece. A to select it all and scroll around so I'm roughly looking at the top, and SY, scale in the Y, and pull it in so it looks like it's the approximate size that I would want it. Here I'll have to leave some room for the floor stuff. So I'm probably going to go with about that. And let's see what we want to do here. If we zoom in, it looks like this piece is longer than this piece. So let's first of all give this some thickness. I'm just going to extrude up, press E, and drag upwards. All right, to give this some height. And go back into object mode. And let's press Shift H just to focus on that thing. All right, we're going to create this shape here. So we're going to need to cut away from there. And so we'll go into edit mode, and I'm going to go Control R. I'm going to put an edge loop there. Let's maybe drag it up a little bit more. And we're going to cut out in just a minute. We're creating the geometry we need to do that. So you can see the thickness of this part looks a little bit thicker than the bottom region here. So I'm just going to drag this out just a little bit like that. And then we'll create an edge loop. And we can move it to somewhere like that. Let's do another one. Move it a little bit closer. I'm looking at this area here versus this area. Let's go back. All right, so like the legs there and there. It looks like we could start with that because we can always edit it. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out this part. Press 3 for face selection, select that face, hold down Shift and select that one and that one, and let's delete them. X faces. Okay, it's starting to look something like this. Like I said, we can adjust that. But now we have all these gaps. I'm going to have to fill that in. So press 2 for edge selection. Select this edge and go F to make a face. And select the bottom of the table. Select this edge and this edge. F. This edge and this edge. F. And we now have that basic shape. I'm going to go into face selection and select the top faces here. And I'm going to pull them down a little bit more. It's just a little thinner on top. Let's go into object mode and let's go Alt H to bring everything else back. And I want to put a bevel on this, and I've already got one on this. So I'm going to select this piece and hold down Shift and select this piece last and go Control L and choose modifiers. And that will put whatever modifiers are on the thing that you selected last onto the thing you selected first. So I've got that. Let's just drag it down until you see it start going in, and then drag it up a little bit, and imagine that's our computer desk. And let's see how that looks if it roughly follows the shape. Okay, now this looks like it might just be black drawn on here to give the impression of a cutaway, but we're doing this in 3D, so this is what we're coming up with. Okay, now let's have a closer look at this bevel and see if we can improve it. Let's try coming over here to where it says limit method. Let's try angle. That didn't do too much for us. Let's try over here arc. It's looking a little bit smoother. We can shade smooth. Let's deselect. We get some shading errors here where you see some shadows and stuff. We can deal with that in a bit, because I think we're going to be cutting into this and adding to it. All right, again, this is probably just block artwork here, or it could be, if it was 3D, you could put that in texturing, but I want to do this in the modeling. And so I don't need to mess around with correcting shading errors right now. Let's just block it in and come back to that in a bit. So we have that. Now we're going to create these things, and we've got like a vent here, and we've got some stuff here and here, and we've got the pipes. And so let's just do something with this. One thing that I like to do very often is select a face or a part of another model and copy it or duplicate it. Shift D, duplicate it. But this is still part of this model, So we're going to break it out. I'm going to use this to create some other geometry. So I'm going to, with that selected, I'm going to press P, separate, and choose this first one here, selection. Go back into object mode. And now I have that piece and that piece. And this one's lined up. I don't know that I need that lined up. I guess I don't. But it will already have the bevel on it. It's inherited the modifier from this one. So I can just use this. So I'm going to go to edit mode and A to select it all and E to extrude. Just going to give it some height. I'm not really concentrating right now. So obviously it's not going to go there. So I just wanted some thickness. So let's A to select it all. And slide it down here. And I'm going to S to scale it. And let's start seeing what we're going to need. Selecting face, pulling it in to get this shape. Okay, so a rectangle with one of those notches. I'm going to need 2 of them roughly in the middle of that table area. Okay, and if we're going to need 2, I'm going to make this a little bit narrower. I'm going to scale this in the Y. I'm going to do this kind of thing. To make that notch, we're going to bring in an edge loop. And the notch happens far down the front face of this. So let's select the whole thing actually, and let's scale this in the Z, make it a bit longer, and pull it down. Let's just grab this edge and pull it in. And yeah, I need some thickness on this for sure. It's hard to tell how much, so let's just go with that. Keep going back to the reference. So I'm going to need a section here in texturing, and so I don't have to decide exactly where that's going to fit yet. I think I'm going to scale it in the Z. I just feel like I need a bit longer. Okay, now my 3D cursor, or my gizmo, my arrows are still in the middle with respect to this object selected. So I'm going to come up to Object, Set Origin, Origin to Geometry, just to move. For this object, the transform tool will show up right on it. And for this object, I can do the same thing. Set origin to geometry. So every time I select them, I can just have my arrows right there. Okay, so that's not quite what I want yet. I don't think this length is long enough yet. So we're gonna come in, and I think I'll just take the top, extend it longer, select the whole thing, and just drag it down, and probably go with something like that. Okay, so once again, just box it, and just, yeah. I'm gonna just duplicate it, Shift D, just drag another one out to see what it would be like. So far so good, and we can see where we're at. Again, I'm not worrying about shading. If I wanted this piece right here to look better, I would come over here and I would put on weighted normal, and then I would come down here, and under normals I would choose auto smooth. But like I say, we're going to be doing some cutting into some of these, and so I don't really need to do that yet. I can leave it on though. Okay, so there's work to do on all of these things. Let's finish up by doing, let's say we'll finish up by putting a couple of these little pipe-like things here, cylinders. This is either dark in there, maybe that just goes in, so let's just do it like that. Very simple. My 3D cursor's there. Let's bring in a cylinder. So to bring in an object, I'm going to go Shift A, Mesh. I'm going to choose Cylinder. Before I do anything else, I'm going to open this up by clicking, and for vertices, I'm going to choose, then it's up to you. How about 22? I will put a subdivision surface on this. I could leave it like that with a cap fill called N-Gon. That's fine. Let's go into edit mode and S to scale it down, and just pull my mouse in like this. Let's rotate this so it's horizontal like this. Let's rotate around the X, RX90, scale a bit more. Let's look from the front and press G to grab and just pull it up. Let's drag it back. So I have to keep coming back to my reference. I'll actually put it down. I'm going to scale it a bit more. Pull it into the wall. Okay, we can start with that. So let's make this some kind of a pipe with a hole in it. So let's press 3 and select that face, and let's press I to inset. I. Pull your mouse in. If you need to go slower, just hold down Shift like this. And let's press E to extrude, left click and drag in the Y direction and just leave it there for now. So it's gone in. All right. We can try putting a bevel on this and see if that works for us. Bevel. Let's go for 3, 0.01 maybe. Right click, shade smooth. It looks a little odd. We could try angle. And we can come in and Shift Alt and click that edge in edge selection. Shift Alt and click that edge. And let's make these not so sharp, these edges. Let's go Control B to bevel. Hold down Shift and pull. And roll your mouse up by 1 to put one edge. Let's leave it like that. Yeah, it's not looking so great. Let's try arc. Doesn't really change anything. So I think what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to delete that bevel. That actually looks okay. If I was to come in here, put another edge and slide it down. But I don't really like it. So I'm going to put a subdivision surface on. Modifier, subdivision surface. 1 might be enough, but now it starts to look funny. And we can fix that. Shift H to isolate that. Go into tab. We don't need this back face because it's in the wall, and that will help right there. So select it and delete it. And we start to get a better shape. All right, this is nice and smooth, but because we started with this as an N-gon, let's just select that face. I know it seems weird how we're selecting it. That doesn't look very good, so you can hit the monitor here and turn that off for the moment. But I'm going to leave it on so you can see. I'm going to press I to inset, and we have our pipe. Let's set origin to geometry to bring the 3D cursor there. Not the 3D cursor, but the gizmo. And Shift D, let's just duplicate that out. Now, if I do more work on this pipe and make it look a little different, we would delete this one and duplicate it once it's done. Same thing with these monitors here. Okay, so we have the basics for what we need here. I will go ahead and add that weighted normal, and just to show you how we can clean things up. Okay, so weighted normal and then auto smooth, but we do have more work to do on all of this. But that's a start to our isometric room following this reference image, and we'll pick it up again in part 3.